All right, guys, welcome to the GameBois podcast, where we dive into the best of retro gaming. I'm Sam, and today we've got two great segments lined up: Buy, Rent, or Sell, where we rank classic games and consoles, and GameBois Game Club, where we go through a short retro game each month and see if it still holds up today. We'll also have a discussion on retro game hunting in conventions versus hunting for retro video games in the wild. But first, let's meet the crew. I'm Sam, and my favorite retro console right now is a Nintendo DS. And let's go around. What's your name and what's your favorite retro gaming console?
I'm guessing I'm starting this off.
Who's going next?
Sure.
So, all right. I'm Leo. As you can tell by my screen name, it says Neo Geo Leo. So, of course, my retro gaming console of choice is the Sega Saturn. I love that thing to death, and that's something that Isaac and I have been collecting the ever-living hell out of for these past couple years, because it seems like it's just slept on, but you look deep in the library and it's like, wow, there's some really good stuff here. Now, I'm going to hand it off to whoever's the next person, so go.
I'll go next. So my name's Nick, if you guys don't know me. My favorite console is the GameCube. In general, my favorite consoles, my favorite generation would be the sixth generation, so PS2, Xbox, and the GameCube. I think that generation holds up pretty well, and the reason why the GameCube is my favorite is because I think the GameCube, although it wasn't very popular at the time, I think the games hold up incredibly well. It's very fun to collect for, and that's the primary game I'm collecting for these days. I'm like pretty much anything Sega as well. Chito, go ahead.
All right, so it's your boy Chito, and my favorite retro console, I would probably say, would be the PlayStation 2. But currently, I'm buying a lot of Nintendo Switch games that I still need to play. But yeah, the PlayStation 2 is like one of the consoles I've always played since I was a kid.
All right, so that leaves me. I would say the PS2 is probably mine. Isaac here. PS2 is probably my favorite retro console, just because I think I found my love for RPGs, which is my favorite genre to begin with there. And I played a lot of games that I have a lot of sentimental value with on the PS2. It narrowly cut a lot of people who came in a second place in terms of my favorite console all time, but I just think you can't go wrong with the piles and piles of great classics they got on the PS2.
I agree. All right. So now with that, we are going to introduce our first segment: Buy, Rent, or Sell. All right. So which legendary Nintendo handheld console do you like the most? Well, today we're going to find out as we pit three of our favorites against each other to see which one truly comes out on top.
Buy, Rent, or Sell, the ultimate showdown where we pit the consoles against each other and we see which we rank up top. Think of it like Date, Marry, Kill, but with consoles, so buy, rent, sell, as the name implies. And in today's episode, we've got the Game Boy line of systems, including the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, the DS line of systems, which includes the Nintendo DS and 3DS, and lastly, the Nintendo Switch, the current gen champion, and maybe the champion in people's hearts. We don't know. We'll find out right now. But we're going to pass it off over to Sam.
Okay, so we're going to start the clock. We're going to give people 3 minutes. I'm starting my clock now. I'll keep tabs for all of you guys. I thought about this over the week and I couldn't decide. Right now, I've been playing the most Nintendo 3DS, and the Nintendo 3DS falls under the Nintendo 3DS and DS, right, Leo? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I definitely would not kill that one. So I think I am going to have to break Leo's heart because I know what he's going to choose, and I'm going to sell the Game Boy Advance, which hurts me as well because I played Pokemon probably the most, Pokemon Blue, Silver, the most out of probably any other game in existence on handhelds, and I'm going to have to sell that because right now I'm playing the 3DS the most as an adult. And the Nintendo Switch just has Skyrim, so I cannot sell that just because of Skyrim. So, I mean, I had 3 minutes, but it looks like 2 minutes and 2 seconds are left, so I'm going to end it there. And those are my reasonings why.
I thought this would have gone on way longer, because when we try to bring up this topic, just to lift the curtain up for anyone listening or watching, we were like, all right, save it. You got a good idea, but just save it for when we actually push record.
I think I do still have a decent amount that I could say.
I just thought about it for a long time, and I just wanted to condense it as fast as I can. So those are my reasons. I am
Yeah.
killing the GBA, or I am selling the GBA. I'm buying the 3DS, and I'm renting the Nintendo Switch.
All right,
a hard
that's
one.
fair. That's
It's
fair.
hard, it's hard.
So,
I mean,
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
who
three
wants to
queens.
go next then?
Pick your favorite queen. 3 queens,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, dude.
So I have to pick between those three, or
The
Yeah.
lines. So the Game
In
Boy line,
order.
the DS line, and the Switch line. And you have to choose which of those is the one that you would buy, the one that you would rent, and the one that you would sell. Date, marry, kill.
Yeah, it includes backwards compatibility, so it
Yes.
includes the whole catalog. Minus the
It's hard.
Switch doesn't, but there's also like Switch has remasters and stuff, so those count too.
I mean, the Switch has online for Game Boy Advance.
Well,
so
if you have to be
We're not
connected to the
considering
internet,
that.
I don't
though.
think
That's
it
a little
counts.
too out of the.
Like, if
So I
you
was-
have to be connected to
so
the
I was
internet, I
wondering.
think that's out of the range of being able to play it. Because once you're off the grid, you're not
We're ta-
going on your virtual
Yeah,
console.
we're talking dedicated ports to a system, if that's what you're thinking,
okay.
and the actual backwards compatibility, not just emulating it through the online servers.
So
'Cause
with
that
that,
would-
my answer stays the same.
Yeah.
Okay, who's going to be up next? I'm going to pass it on to Leo.
Okay, so
3 minutes starting now.
Sam brought up a pretty good point about this, and that's that even though there's a lot of nostalgia towards the Game Boy line of systems, specifically in my case, the Game Boy Advance, you would think that I'd be going there. Problem is that I'm weighing it considering the Game Boy and Game Boy Color too. And if I'm being honest, there's like 1 or 2 titles on the original Game Boy that I have interest in, and only a couple more on the Game Boy Color with. It's the Game Boy Advance that really holds it up for me. And then even then, there's a huge issue that I have the Game Boy Advance as much as I love it. And that's that a lot of its games are remastered from the SNES or remade from the NES. And a lot of its best games, like Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga or something like that, are, I wouldn't say few and far between, but it seemed like this was a console where they're like, hey, let's take previous gen systems and bring them down to a portable level. And as much as I love the system, though, I have to go, how much of its original content do I love? So as much as I love the Game Boy line of systems, I'm going to have to put it in the cell category. Now-
Oof.
I know, shocking.
That was not on my bingo card, dude.
Yeah, I thought you were going to buy it.
Now, for the rent category, I'm going to go with the Nintendo Switch. Now, reason why is it's still ongoing. With the Switch line of systems, when we see about an eventual Switch 2, hypothetically speaking, it might include more compatibility towards these games. But right now, we're talking about a system that's ongoing. It's still in our memories fresh. It's not in retrospective. We're not able to look at it in the rearview mirror and just kind of go, okay, that's what was released, and that's what I'm going to go with. And that's one of those things where, because I'm considering all this, I have to go, okay, I don't want to fall into recency bias, and I just got to kind of put it in a level where I'm like, okay, it's in the perfect in between right now because it's still ongoing, but it might have more in the future. And when we see it fully in the past, the rankings might change, but that's where it's at right now. Now, lastly, DS, 3DS line. I was actually expecting this to be my sell, but when I started thinking about it, it was my buy because I look at their line and
Who is this, Sam?
I know. I'm
Crazy.
looking at their lineup of games, and it's
good,
like
dude.
banger after banger after
The
banger.
consistency,
Yeah.
dude.
And not only that, but for the longest time, I was the type of person that would crap on the dual screen gimmick because I was like, it's unnecessary. And the more I grow up and the more I look at it, I do think it's a fun novelty when it's used correctly. And a lot of games do use it correctly. It's mostly those early titles that just kind of treat it as a gimmick. But in later titles, you kind of actually see like there's creativity and innovation there. And with the 3D especially, like it's a gimmick that didn't always land, but when it does, it really does. And the quality of games is just bolstered by that fact. And for that, I am putting it in the buy category.
Oof.
Now I'm going to pass it
Excellent.
over
And
to...
just with that was 3 minutes perfectly, actually.
Oh!
I was about to
There we
stop
go.
you there.
I'll
We're gonna
pass it
pass it
over
to
to Isaac.
Okay.
Okay. Run my clock, boys.
It
So
started.
I'm going to start backwards. I'm actually just going to straight up buy the Nintendo Switch. Now, I wouldn't even have said that I liked the Nintendo Switch or even loved it at launch. It came so bare bones with this whole concept of you get a console and you say, I could take this with me and I could play it on my TV. But the Switch doesn't even feel or play like a portable console. It feels like an at-home console that's weaker than other home consoles. that's kind of a burden to actually take with you on the road and play with other people. It has nowhere near the form factor or the accessibility of a DS, or you can't like throw it in your pocket without worrying that it'll break or backpack, right? However, all that being said, the library, right? I love a lot of RPGs and I love a lot of niche games. I'm not going to get big AAA home console games on the other two. I'll get some ports that are downsized. And even if these aren't the most optimal way to play certain games, I already know that right now I'm playing a lot of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance right now. And I could play that all day, all night, and it's on my Switch. And there's other like remasters of hidden gem RPGs and legendary RPGs, like some of the Final Fantasy series, the Trails of series. You got some of the Mana games coming out, and I can't do that on the other two. So I love it just because I'm an RPG head, and it lets me play my modern games faster. Transition, I would say the next one I would go GBA, mostly because of Retro Pokemon. Retro Pokemon was one of my earlier RPG experiences. There's some of the Final Fantasy games that were some of my earlier Final Fantasy games I played. You got Metroid Fusion, which is insane. One of the best video games I've ever played. I think it's as good as Super. And then I'm going to throw in the trash the DS. I love the DS line. I love the 3DS line. I don't love it as much. And I don't love it anywhere near enough to say I'd rather play any DS or 3DS game than one of the old school Pokemon, Metroid Fusion, or any of the modern Switch RPGs that I have. Again, my choice ended up coming down to just the fact that this is a still growing and learning system. We're still learning what it is that makes this system so accessible to so many people. And you guys brought it up, but with the advent of a Switch 2, this thing can only get better, right? This thing can only get better. What if my hope and my dream for a Switch 2 is to just have it be permadocked, and you have a portable mode that you just take with you that's more akin to like the Switch Lite. That way you feel like you have a portable console again, because that's what I do miss about the GBA and DS is they felt portable.
Agreed.
But yeah,
Definitely.
that's mine. Switch, GBA, DS.
Boom, right on time. 3 minutes are up.
Right.
I will say, I don't want to take up your time while saying this, but I find it interesting how you said you wanted to throw away the 3DS in the trash, but there's so many Shin Megami Tensei games on there. And you're just like, we're harping about how you love Shin Megami Tensei.
My favorite one is on PS2 though, and that one got ported to Switch. And
Okay.
five just recently has been like climbing on like some of my top favorite games. But I don't want to take any more time. They also put a lot of the Persona stuff on there. But you're right.
I think
should
that
have thought
another
about
thing
that.
too.
I should have thought about that.
I think that another thing too is that oftentimes our feelings kind of get in the way of the, I wouldn't say the objective facts, but a lot of the other matters that happen. Like, I love the GBA, but it's also a system that is riddled to the brim with a crappy licensed tie-in games, and
A lot of
that's
them.
also something that kind of weighed it down for me. But anyways, Isaac, you're going to pass it on to someone else.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and send this on over to Nick because I feel like he's chomping at the bit to talk about some Nintendo right now.
All right, Nick, time started.
So this was a hard one, dude. Like literally, as you guys are talking about it, like I already know which one I'm gonna buy.
Hey,
as
real
you guys,
talk. How many of you guys changed your answers a couple times before leading up to today?
Oh no,
I
no,
literally like going back and forth between my other two. Like as you guys are talking about it right now, because it's hard, dude. Something that I thought Isaac talked about that was interesting is like the hardware itself. I'm gonna straight up say that I'm gonna buy the Switch just because I think we're gonna look back on the Switch as probably for sure one of the most fondly remembered Nintendo consoles. It has a lot going for it, in my opinion. But talking about the hardware, like Isaac mentioned, it's not a traditional handheld where you could flip it open and put it in your pocket like the GameBois GBA SP or the DS. And that was those, back when we were kids, being able to do that was like phenomenal. It's a little bit more cumbersome to carry the Switch around, and the battery life is like 3 hours max. But nonetheless, it's an excellent console. I was looking at some of the games just to refresh my memory, and obviously the Zeldas are phenomenal. You got a whole bunch of good Mario games, Mario Odyssey, Mario Wonder. You got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is technically it's a Wii U game, but the the DLC that they added makes it feel like almost a whole new game. You got, of course, I'm going to say Sonic Mania because I think it's objectively the best Sonic game ever made.
Oh yeah, so good.
I think Smash Ultimate.
Oh yeah.
I don't play it as much as I used to, but I put like 1,100 hours on that game. Like
Oof.
you got like the GameCube remakes. You got like Metroid Prime, and then you got Mario the Thousand Year Door, which is one of my favorite GameCube games. So definitely buying the Switch. This one I was going back and forth on. I think I'm gonna say that I'm gonna rent the 3DS just because I think it has more consistency than the GBA. I think the GBA is a phenomenal system. In my opinion, I think the GBA has the heavier hitters hit harder than the 3DS ones, in my opinion. Like going to the GBA, like Pokemon Emerald, all the Pokemon games, Ruby, and if we're including Game Boy Color, obviously Silver, Gold, etc. But then with the GBA as well, I was a big fan of the Sonic Advance series, and I absolutely love those. As Leo mentioned, that was the era on handhelds and on consoles where licensed games were plentiful, and sometimes you got some really good ones. Like I know Leo and I have talked about like Lilo and Stitch being a really good game. I know Leo's also mentioned The Sims, which isn't a licensed game, but there's some hidden gems in there. But the 3DS just has so many good games. Like it has, nobody really talks about this one, but Mario Kart 7 has Smash Bros, which was a big deal because it came out on the 3DS before, coming out on the Wii U.
I forget about that.
It has Link Between Worlds, which honestly is an amazing game. Like I know it's technically kind of a remake, but it's so good. And then you get the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remakes. You get Mario 3D Land, and that console is great. And you got the Donkey Kong. They had a port of Country Returns on that, which for a long time up until the upcoming Switch re-release was the best way to play the first Donkey Kong Country Returns. But the GBA has still got some heavy hitters. The Pokemon games, the Mario Superstar Saga, the Dragon Ball Z Goku, Legacy of Goku games are phenomenal. I know that there's some Fire Emblem games on there, I believe, right? I haven't played those myself. You got Advance Wars, so it's got a good, healthy mix of genres as well. So those are the ones I'm going with. Love to hear what Chito has to say about it.
The 3DS I want to mention also had Netflix and YouTube.
Hey, can I say real quick? I changed my mind. I'm renting the DS. Nick just convinced me. Nick,
yeah,
I changed my mind. I'm renting the DS. Sam and Nick convinced me. I didn't take into account all the SMT stuff, and my favorite gens of Pokemon are technically on the DS with Black and White. So and Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So yeah, I changed it. Game Boy's in the trash, bro.
Dude, Game Boy's in the sell bin for all four of us so far.
The Game Boys are dumping the Game Boys, bro.
We're the DS
Game Boys over here.
It's just hard, man. It's hard no matter which way you slice it.
Yep, the DS dudes.
Right now
the Switch Chito. Swag boys.
Yeah, we got Chito running up on 3 minutes. Start now, brother.
All right, so for me, this wasn't that difficult because although I did have a Game Boy Color as a kid, I didn't really have that many games for it. So I only had like 3 to 4 games. So yeah, the Game Boy is going to go in the trash for me. But it still has good games. Like all the Pokemon games, like that's where you started. That's where I started off with Pokemon, with the original Game Boy Pokemon. That's what got me into all the Pokemon stuff. So yeah, but like I said, right now, I even own 2 Switches right now. I have the original Switch and the OLED. And I was thinking of buying another one too. But yeah, so I'll definitely be buying the Switch. And it's because all the port games, like there's a bunch of games that I didn't get to play because I didn't own like a Super Nintendo that I can play, like the Mario RPG. Like I can play on the Switch because I didn't get to play it back then. And I don't want to buy it now because it's like super expensive.
Yeah.
Even though I have it, but but yeah, so I would definitely buy the Switch, and I'm renting the DS. And one thing about the DS that you guys didn't bring up that was like heck of fun when we were kids is the Picto Chat.
Oh,
I was actually waiting for someone to bring that up too.
Picto Chat was like so fun. We're in like the bus, everyone just sending each other messages and everything. And another thing with the Game Boy, you couldn't really play online or multiplayer. You had to have the link cable. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Whereas the DS, there's more, like multiplayer chances. Even if you don't own the game, like on the Mario
Like
Kart
Mario
one,
Kart,
as
yeah.
long as one person had it, other people could play.
Oh yeah.
And the Switch, like, everything's online. They can play like Fortnite and everything. So yeah, I would definitely buy the Switch, rent the DS, and Game Boy's got to go in the trash, man.
Dang. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're doing everything to not live up to our channel's name.
I think
Well, we're just the
I'm
Game
correct.
Boys, right?
Yeah. I mean,
4 of
we're
us
a bunch
dumped
of
Game Boy,
boys.
right? 4 of us dumped it. Sam, I think
I
dumped
dumped
DS
it. I
first.
dumped it.
Oh, you dumped it, right?
So
I
all
think
the
all
Game
of
Boy.
it.
Unanimous.
We all
Clean
dumped the
sweep.
Game Boy. And
The
we're,
thing
all,
is-
we're the Game Boys.
The thing is, too,
Yeah.
we all did say, like, it's got great games. It's just, I think all of us
Bro.
also kind of said it is weighed down by the Game Boy and Game Boy Color line. It's the Game Boy Advance stuff that's holding it up.
The
Yeah,
downfall of the Game Boy starts now, guys.
Game Boys are canceled.
But even with the Advance, like, I
These
mean,
guys
now we
don't
have
even
modded.
like
Watch
the
what
Game
you're going to say.
Boys.
Watch what you're going to say right now.
We have modded Game Boy Advances where there's backlit
Mhm.
screens, but like back then it was like you couldn't really play at
That's
night.
another good point. If you're talking OG hardware, that makes things
Yeah.
even more complicated.
And
Do
like,
you guys think that we, at one point, were all on the same bus on some field trip playing
I'm
Picto
sure.
Chat with each other, all of us?
Yeah,
Not
had a
me,
DS
because I
as a
never
kid.
brought it, but I think that you guys all when we went to the 8th grade Santa Cruz trip to
Yeah.
the boardwalk. That's when I saw everybody with their DSs on Picto Chat.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was one of the guys with a copy of Mario Kart, so I was able to make everyone be able to play on download play as Shy Guy.
Isn't that
And-
crazy?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
We're
It was
freaking
cool.
30 years old and we have a podcast,
know.
and all of us played Mario Kart, minus maybe Leo, in the bus.
I didn't have a
And-
DS.
That's dude.
I was
that-
Game
I
Boy
didn't have
Advance
one
diehard.
either. I didn't
I
have one either, but I played like one of our other friends that we had.
Mhm.
I was a Game Boy Advance diehard. I remember like I was refusing to buy a DS for the longest time because I was like, no, I want the Game Boy Advance to keep on going. I was a kid. I was like, no, this is my bread and butter. I do not want this to die. I want to keep on.
And the
supporting
crazy thing is, Leo, because we're kids at the time, I bet in your heart you believed I bet I could get them to make more GBAs. So I just
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a kid and I was like, no, I remember Final Fantasy VI Advance came out. I was like, 7 Advance is gonna come out next, not knowing how that works. But
Bro, they can't even make 7 DS. You think they
remember
can make 7 Advance?
exactly, I was a kid and I was like drafting up like on Microsoft Paint like crappy 3D renders of what the game 7 Advance would look like.
We
That's
used to show each other, me and Leo, in 8th grade, like the worst looking pictures. We'd be like, "Hey, bro, do you think this is real?" Just remakes of Final Fantasy VII on different
Yep.
consoles, like on
You get-
PS2. I think at one point I showed him like a fake Lego Final Fantasy VII.
I think you did, and that might have just been from like an April Fool's issue of some magazine or something.
We believed it though. We believed it.
That reminds me
That's,
of
that's
like
exactly how you and I met each other. Like we didn't even
Yeah.
meet each other through us. We heard about each other. Like, so you like JRPGs? I heard. Yeah. And then we just started talking.
And then we found out we lived literally down the block from each other.
yeah.
Freaking
No, but-
JRPGs, dude.
We got a topic down the line. Eventually, we got to do a playground rumors one.
oh, that's gonna be so
Oh
fun.
yeah.
You're gonna say
Chico's
something,
gotta-
Nick?
I was gonna say you guys were mentioning, like seeing the Lego Final Fantasy stuff, and that just reminds me of like back in like I don't know, around the time of the Xbox 360, PS3 era, like right before that, you would see YouTube videos of like the Xbox 720.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just like controllers of
The
like
PlayStation 4 controller had like 20,000 buttons, and it looked like a
Yeah.
boomerang.
Yeah.
Batman looking one. Batman
Wasn't that
symbol.
real though? Wasn't it
That one-
originally
It was
actually going
based
to be
on
a
a real
boomerang?
one, but like
Yeah.
the real one was just like a boomerang with your standard PlayStation control scheme. But they added like 70 buttons to that thing to make it like next gen.
The boomerang one was like the prototype one. They
Yeah.
displayed that
Yeah,
at some
yeah,
sort of like tech
E305 or
conference.
something like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
And
it
then
was behind
Nintendo had
glass.
like the Nintendo Revolution was the Wii before
Yeah,
it.
that was a code name for it.
And their whole thing was that they were gonna have like a bunch of colors. Like I remember getting like a Game Informer, and they just had like a bunch of different pictures of Wii's that were all just like different colors of the rainbow. And I think they didn't have the nunchuck developed yet, so a lot of people just saw like the Wii remote connected to another Wii remote as the motion controls.
Hmm.
It would be
But-
fun. It would be fun to talk about like speculation. Early speculation before consoles came out, and like stuff that Nintendo or other companies planned at some point. I remember
That's a good topic, Nick.
I remember learning about they actually had like essentially like the Wiimote it wasn't the Wiimote, but it was essentially like motion control controller built for the GameCube. At one point, I don't know when it was worked on, but it never came out, obviously. But yeah, I think that'd be a fun topic eventually.
No, that's a good idea, Nick.
Is there anything else you guys want to touch upon in terms of the segment, or would you guys like to move forward with another segment?
I mean,
Play the Switch games on the Game Boy Advance. They're underrated.
I just want to also say, like, again, yeah, I want to change mine. I'm dumping GBA, and Sam was right, Nick was right. I gotta bring DS up a level.
The downfall of the Game Boys, bro.
Seriously, Game Boys hate the Game
posers,
Boys.
bro.
They don't even play
the
their
Game
games.
Boys.
Let's move on to the next segment then.
All right, with that,
Which one's
moving
this
on.
one?
What up?
Which one's the next one?
The
Cartridge
next
Club.
segment we got right now is Game Club. All right. Does Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland 3 still? I don't know if that's the right name. Is that the right name?
Kirby Dreamland 3. Kirby's
Let Isaac
Dreamland 3.
introduce it's his choice, so you might as well give the
Yeah.
Okay, you want to introduce it, Isaac?
Sure. I'll just go off the dome. So for this part, for anyone who's watching or listening, is going to be our monthly little book club, if you would, but it's going to be a game club. Name still pending on what we're going to call it officially. But basically, we're going to try and play some wind down video game, something a little cozy, something small that everyone can have in nice bite-sized segments. That way we could all play it enough to have an opinion on it and then discuss it next time we meet together for a little podcast. And I'll start us off. I'm the one who chose the first one, just by the way we did a little roulette through a number generator, and I got first pick. And my first pick was Kirby's Dreamland 3. Now, this isn't a pick by any means because I love Kirby or anything like that. I enjoy Kirby games. The missus enjoys Kirby a whole lot. And I kind of picked it because I wanted to really give it a good try, because eventually at some point I may want to buy this game as a present for her. It's always had me gravitated towards it because of the art style. It's very reminiscent of Yoshi's Island. There's not a lot of games on the Super Nintendo that had this type of, coloring book style to it, if you would, where you had games like Donkey Kong Country come out and start looking super sleek in 3D, or Earthworm Jim, or Vector Man on the Genesis. This one and Yoshi's Island try to go for a kid's book aesthetic. But it also introduced some new things. I won't go into it too much because I want to leave some meat on the bones for the other guys to discuss, because I want to hear their opinions. I played Kirby's Dreamland 3 before. I've really liked it in the past. Playing it now, I still think it's pretty good. I don't necessarily think I would go out of my way to be playing it more than the missus if I buy it for her, but I definitely want to show it to her because I do think it's cute. It's got a very whimsical art style to it because, like I said, it's got that coloring book style that Yoshi does, and a new feature that they did not do in a lot of Kirby games. They did it in Kirby's Dreamland 2, and they also brought it back for this one. Kirby has mounts. So he has these different Yoshis, if you would, a mount being in a video game, a rideable critter or creature that gives you a certain power up. But you'll see sometimes too that is the mount a plus, or is it more of an obstacle to get you to the next spot because you're like, oh shoot, I think I needed a different one, or I think I'd rather be running around with this power up. But I'll leave that for you guys to talk about. So I'll pass it in the same order we were kind of going in before. Sam, what did you think of Kirby's Dreamland 3? Let us know what you thought going into it and your overall experience.
Yeah, I was actually very excited to play it, and because I've played Dreamland, Nightmare in Dreamland, or the GBA remake. I don't know which that's called. Either Return to Dreamland, Nightmare in Dreamland. Yeah, I played that one and I loved it. This one I was excited to play it because I haven't played any of the older games, not even the Nintendo 64 games. So I just wanted to see what Kirby was like before. I will say I loved, like, the gameplay was great. Like, it felt like a Kirby game. It felt like I was playing Smash Bros. Like, platforming was great. Like, Sakurai knows what he's doing out there in HAL Labs or whatever, or whoever made it. I think somebody made it, right? But the gameplay was great. But I do think for it being a Nintendo game, like, that little polish, I don't think was there, which is something that, like, I got disappointed by. There was a lot of moments in playing the game where I didn't know what to do. And I mentioned this earlier when we were all playing through it together. Like, in the beginning, you go into certain rooms and it's just like there's a hamster and the cat just chilling there. And then you hit buttons, walk around, and you don't know what to do, and you just leave back in the door because it's like they don't explain that like you could jump on them, you can ride them, and like different. If you have like the fireball ability is different whenever you jump on the hamster versus whenever you jump on the cat, and they're completely different. So you don't know what's going on a lot of the times. And then Leo, I mean, actually, I don't know if I should mention. I'll mention this. Me and Leo couldn't figure out how the freaking bonus section works at the end of the game.
I recommended the game and still don't know how it works.
Yeah, like we tried, like if there's Kirby's like winding up for a jump. I've tried doing it in the beginning of the wind up and it goes somewhere, and then I try doing it at the end of the wind up. It goes in the same place, so I have no idea like how to make it work. It might be random.
It's by the
But
arm.
I don't know if it's just something that like comes with it being an older game, and like Super Nintendo games just were not like that. But there was some like user experience things that I felt would have been a lot nicer, is kind of the biggest thing that I felt playing the game. But it was fun. I loved it. That's my opinions on it.
That's good to hear. All right. I'm very glad to see you still thought, it's got that good gameplay, but yeah, well, maybe we should grade it after everyone goes and see what everyone thinks. I'm gonna pass it next then to just going on my screen. The next face next to Sam is Nintendo Nerd Nick. So Nintendo Nerd Nick, what did you think of Kirby's Dream Land 3 on the Super Nintendo? I'm
going to be honest. I think I played it the least out of everybody here. I played it a little bit. I played it in the past as well. I'm going to say that in general, I'm a pretty big Kirby fan. I played majority of the big Kirby games. I have yet to play Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which I've heard is a really good game. But Kirby's Dream Land 3, I absolutely adore the art style. And it's a very interesting game because it came out in 1997, a year after the Nintendo 64 came out.
No way.
Yeah. And it makes me realize and probably think that, how Sam just mentioned that it didn't have maybe as much polish. It's probably because it was such a late release that they maybe didn't feel that they didn't have to put as much effort into it, like on little things. You guys can give me a little bit of details on the later game stuff, but I think the mounts are really, really charming. I think the whole game just oozes charm. I think it's pretty standard Kirby formula. I enjoyed what I played of it. If I'm comparing it to the others, I think it's really carried by the art style and the mounts. And technically it's still a pretty early Kirby game, so I shouldn't discount it too much. I'm sure at the time it was very, very fun to play, and the fact that you could play co-op as well. On the previous consoles, on the NES, Kirby's Adventure was single player, so being able to play co-op was a pretty big deal. I'm not sure if Superstar at the time had co-op, but nonetheless, I'm sure that back in the day that was a really enticing game to kids. So that's my take on it. I didn't get into it as in depth, unfortunately, but I really enjoyed what I played.
That's a good point, Nick. I didn't even think of the co-op thing for the time it came out. And I didn't even know that it came out during the 64 era. So really its only competition was Superstar in terms of what's the most recent one. Interesting. Cool. All right. So next on my screens, at least, I'm going to navigate us towards Neo Geo Leo. Neo Geo Leo, why don't you go ahead and tell us what we thought about Kirby's Dream Land 3? Also, a side note, I just want to say anyone who's listening or watched us, a majority of us went ahead and played this on the Virtual Console on the Switch. So if you're listening and you want to give the game a shot, it is on the Virtual Console on the Switch. Go ahead and check that out. So Leo, what'd you think of Kirby's Dream Land 3?
I do want to interject first. And later after the segment, we're going to mention the game that we're going to play for next month, and it would be fun if people listening care enough to play it alongside us and then come back and see what our thoughts are.
That'd be nice.
That'd be kind of cool, and see maybe you guys are like, that game was great. Sam, you're dumb. Why'd you say it sucked? Anyway, sorry, Leo.
Okay, so just gonna
I'm gonna pull up some notes here. Hero,
there you go. That'll give you my thoughts on the game. So, I have very lukewarm opinions on this game because I'm not a Kirby hater by any means. I've actually been wanting to get into the series, but the whole time I was playing, I was like, am I insane? Is this game just not as good as I thought it was going to be? And Upon researching it, I found out that this is kind of considered a mid-tier game as far as the Kirby mainline series goes. So I was like, okay, I'm not alone. And let me start off with the positives of this game. The big three would be the aesthetic, the charm of the game, and the soundtrack. So aesthetic, as Isaac had pointed out, this game has a very painterly art style. And in this case, whereas something like Yoshi's Island looked like a coloring book, this looks more like watercolor paintings, and I really enjoyed that because it made the getting into the world of the game a lot easier. For the soundtrack, unless I'm missing something because I'm still very new to Kirby, I was like, oh, that's where this song's from. It's from this game specifically. Oh, that's where this one's from. And like even the songs that I didn't recognize, I was like, oh, this is a jolly good time. And so I was enjoying my way through the game still because soundtracks have a big impact on how much I enjoy a game. So that actually made it a lot easier for me to just kind of casually vibe through the game and just enjoy that. And the charm of Kirby is just a very effortlessly charismatic series. You're just kind of playing and you're like, yeah, they're just little things here or there that just kind of make you smile or just kind of appreciate them. But there was, as far as negatives go, the biggest one is unintuitive gameplay design. So a big issue that I had was oftentimes the game wasn't necessarily difficult. Things were either just not explained or you were given an unfair disadvantage as to how to play them. So something that would often happen is that you go through a door and you go into the next area of the stage and it begins an auto-scroll segment. Auto-scroll segments start right away and they're really fast. That's how I had most of my deaths in the game. So it would be like, I go through the door, camera's already panning, I'm like, oh, I died. Let me try that. Oh, I died. That would happen several times, and that's how I died most of the time. It wasn't through actual in-game enemies hitting me, because usually that would happen from time to time, but for the most part, that was avoidable. It was things like that, or things like how sucking up an enemy, clear as day. You just press the Y button. I was trying to figure out for like 5 minutes how to spit him back out. I was assuming it would be one of the face buttons, maybe one of the shoulder buttons. No, it's select. And you would think it would be either the same button that you used to suck them in or one of the neighboring buttons, but the fact that it was select, it was the dead last button I thought about. I think Sam actually had to clarify that for me, or how he said that when you're going through the mounts, you're not really sure what to do, that you could even do anything with them in the first place, because you're just kind of going through buttons and it's like, oh, I guess nothing happens, especially because some of the mounts aren't activated right away. Some of them just are there, and even if you press the Y button, which is what you have to press to activate the mount, in some cases nothing happens. So by the time you go into one of the levels that actually needs you to mount them, you wouldn't think that would be the case because you've done that before and nothing had happened.
Yeah, I want to mention there's like weird creatures that are just chilling there, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this could be a mount. You tap Y on it or the button or whatever, and you're like, okay, they're
Nothing
just
happens.
chilling here. Then I guess.
So,
that's what kind of
there's
tricked
these
me.
there's these like secret missions you got to do within the level, and they don't really do a good job of telling you how to do it.
They
Yeah,
don't tell you
that's what you
anything,
guys are
bro.
talking
They don't
about.
tell you
Yeah, no,
anything.
Yeah.
exactly. Like I'm not the type of person that wants hand holding in games, but it would have been like even just a little blurb to let you know would have been nice. That because I was like kind of shooting in the dark because I thought like, oh, these guys that are chilling there don't do anything. No, they're mounts. They just don't let you know that they're mounts. And
I wonder.
eventually there's a point where you go and maybe you need a mount for a certain part of the level, but say you spit it out and you can't go back to get it in the same level because you progress past that certain point. You have to quit the level and start all over again to get that mount, and then go and it's like little things like that bother me. That said, another one of the positives, boss fights are really fun. That's very intuitive. You know what to do just by looking at the boss, like, okay, and that's good design right there. So as far as the bosses go, that's where the best aspects of this game happened. As far as some of the worst parts, it's not necessarily terrible or anything, but what brought it down for me, like I said, was some of that unintuitive level design, and I wish they made things a little more clear, or they made things a little bit more showed more effort. Because another thing is that with a lot of the stages, you could kind of breeze right through them by just doing the circle jump or the floating jump, and then like every once in a while dodging an enemy in the sky and then just going to the end. And I feel like it would have been more it would have been better if they found ways to circumvent that and make you get creative with how you platform around the game. So overall, my opinions on the game are still positive, just barely though. It's in the lukewarm category. Like I said, it's because I thought it was okay, but it could have been a lot better. And like I said, I thought I was going insane, but it turns out that a lot of the Kirby community is in a consensus on this one just being kind of an okay game.
And with the Kirby community thinking this game is okay, as the last note, we will shine light on what Chito thoughts. Chito, what did you go ahead and think about Kirby's Dreamland 3? Did you think it was a hidden gem Kirby game, or did you think it was a pile of trash, or somewhere in the middle? Let us know.
All right, so I'm not very familiar with Kirby games. I played one, and I enjoyed it because it was which one was it? The one I got for the DS, the Squeak Squad.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, so that was fun. So going into this game, I was expecting kind of something similar where you suck your enemies and take their power, or you know what I mean?
Suck. Give them the good suck.
The good suck. But this game was different, and I did enjoy the mounts because they were cute. The game was adorable, but for me, it was kind of slow. Like I felt like I couldn't even figure out how to run into like the next world. So I was like, dude, why is this game so slow?
It's just crazy. Like Leo mentioned that like he prefers not hand holding, but wouldn't you think that Kirby is like hand holding the game?
It's originally it was developed like the Game Boy one was developed by Sakurai to specifically target non-gamers. Like it was supposed to be so entry level that somebody who was into video games and never played a video game could get into it. And what makes me think what happened was, you know how back in like the NES era, like they would put a lot of the lore and a lot of the descriptions of things in the manuals. It makes me think that a lot of things that popped up could have been that, which wouldn't make sense because, you know, you have Mario World and Yoshi's Island that did exactly what we were asking this game to do. You know, had like those games had a lot of blurbs where it would pop up and say how to throw an egg and Yoshi and etc. But it's just a really interesting thing that a lot of that is lacking.
We're gonna get a lot of hate in the channel. We're gonna be like, you guys are dumb. You should have read the manual.
No, that's what I thought too. Because if you think about it, back in the day, like when the NES, Super NES, the Nintendo would market a lot of like strategy guides. Yeah. Like Zelda, like no one knew how to play that game either. You had to find it through a strategy guide or have a friend who had a strategy guide. The internet wasn't a thing back then. Yeah, internet wasn't a thing back then. So like, you know, the secret dungeons and everything. Like I thought maybe that's why they decided not to give you directions, because I was confused also on those like mini boss or whatever. Like there was one where there was a girl, and I'm like, why is the girl here? Like it shows a picture of her like on the world thing, and then when you get to her, she's just chilling. And you're like, is she the boss? Like, is she gonna give me something? Like, what do I do?
It goes back to that thing. There's like missions that they don't tell you how to do them, and then you get to the part where you're supposed to like get to the conclusion of that mission, and it's usually like a partner you help. And then when you get to the other partner, they give you a reward, and you unlock what would be like the secret completion of the level. But it wasn't like you guys said, it was not a hand-holding experience. Chito, anything else to add?
Yeah, also I hate water levels.
Oh yeah,
this game had a lot of them,
bro. The fish
water levels are already floaty as hell,
mount.
and you got Kirby water levels. They're like double the floaty.
And like
when you had the fish, it was cool though.
No, they give you the fish before you go in the level, but you don't know you're going into that level.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna pick the fish.
And on top of that, you don't know
you end up in a water level and like, damn, I should have picked the fish.
They should have made every mount water accessible. Like they should have just made every mount able to swim. Because I hate when they make a mechanic that can only be utilized in a very gray area. They did that in Mario 3 with the stupid frog suit. The frog suit is useless everywhere except the water. Here, they gave you a frog suit with the fish.
I was gonna say too, piggybacking off what you said about how you don't know that you're gonna go into a water level. Beyond that, because I had prior experiences where I tried to go use the mounts, but I didn't get anything out of them because I hadn't unlocked them yet. I was just like, oh, they're just there. They're just chilling. I'm not actually gonna get to do anything with them. Nope, they actually are necessary to some extent, at least.
Yeah. All right, Chito, anything else on Kirby?
No. Overall, it's a good game to try out. I wouldn't say I'll go on my way to play it again. But I'd say it's a good game to try out, just to give it a try if you're a Kirby fan or if you haven't played any Kirby games. But there are definitely better Kirby games out there.
All right, to wind it up, Kirby's Dream Land 3. I think it's a fun experience to try out, like Chito said. It's a very niche Kirby game in a series where it's already pretty niche, and it's always trying to change up what mechanic it wants to focus on every series. But for this one, I feel like there was a lot of missed potential. The mounts were cool, the art was cool, a lot of the designs of characters and the music and the atmosphere was really cool. But it was never, I think the overarching theme with our reviews each, it was never as intuitive as you would think a Kirby game would be. If you've never played a Kirby game is notorious for just being the type of series where you can move to the right at your own pace and take powers from enemies at your own pace, and you'll usually get the job done. This one had a little bit more puzzle solving that wasn't even in your face. Oh, I know I should probably move this block here. It was just things that you wouldn't think about normally.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of older games suffer from I gotta Google it syndrome.
Yeah.
Especially because games back then were made specifically cryptic. That way,
It extended the lifetime.
exactly, because they knew that their games were like 30 minutes long or something. Or in this
You
case,
gotta buy
like
that
3.5, 4
Nintendo
hours.
power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Buy
either
the
need to buy the
Nintendo power to find the secrets.
or you need to find a way to justify a $70+ purchase at the time by extending the runtime as much as possible with one of my least favorite things in games ever: artificial difficulty.
Yep.
So
You guys,
I think we should grade the game, and
Yeah.
then everyone give like a stereotypical tier chart.
Like
so
A
like
through
letter
F
grade.
or
Yeah,
1 through 10.
you
Or,
could even
something-
say S
something
if you
fan.
really love Kirby Dream Land 3 so much. You gotta drop it in an S, bro.
and I
I
think
ain't
we
stopping you.
could do that, weigh out the grades, and then that's how we'll
Yeah.
kind of like tier rank our
Yeah, 100%.
cartridge club.
Yeah, so we'll start with Sam, and then everyone give their letter grade, and then we'll put the median. We'll collaborate on the median.
Yeah.
So
Like,
Sam,
we'll
what do
give
you
it a
think?
C.
I was thinking right now, my head first thoughts are between D and C, but I'm gonna give it a C because I had a great time. It's not a game. It's a game that I would play again given the opportunity. I would not seek it, but I would not be like, no, this game is dog water. I'm not gonna play it. I'd be like, not the best, but I'll play. So I would say C is my grade.
In general, I think most Kirby games are pretty solid. I don't think there's any terrible Kirby games. I also like that, Kirby is one to experiment kind of with the Yoshi series as well. Overall with this game, I'm just going to give it a C like Sam. I think there's some really great things that's going on with this game. However, I don't think it has some of the things that make the others stand out. So I would give it a C.
All right, Leo.
I think C is a pretty safe bet. It's middle of the road, leaning positive. It's got a lot of missed potential, but it's not so much that I'd put it in D rank. And it's not a bad game, so wouldn't put it in F rank, because that's where D and F I think is a territory for negative games. C is mixed opinions, kind of leaning one way or another depending on how things go. B and A are the really positive ones, and S is like for the all-time greats. So yeah, I'd say C rank is about what I feel on this game.
3 C's, bro.
Hey, you already know C's get degrees.
I
Yeah.
was about to say that.
No,
All
bro.
right.
Yeah, I agree. It's a C. It's a game that if I were to buy used, I would not complain about it. If I were to buy it brand new, but expensive, I'd probably be like,
Yeah, this game's like $170 at the time of recording.
oh,
Yeah, play it on the
Loose?
Switch if you can.
yeah, play
Yeah,
on the
loose.
Switch. If you want to try
Loose.
it out, play on the Switch.
Yeah.
That
But
is
yes, I think C's.
Crazy.
It's because it's a late release. I'm
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah.
confident that's why.
I'm not gonna lie. If I was to buy this game used loose, I'd pay $20 for it.
Yeah, I would say
That's
I was
fair.
gonna say like 12,
Yeah.
15 bucks.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll pay more than 30 for sure.
I would wrap it up, and for sure also actually I'm gonna bump it a triple S tier, that way it weighs up to B. I'm gonna go C, dude. This is a C
C.
game, and I
C's
think
degrees,
it's
dude.
perfect because for our first game for Game Club, I think we should probably, now we have a baseline,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What do we think is okay? Is it worse than Kirby 3? Is it better than Kirby 3? That's
Yeah.
what we'll go off of. But I'm gonna shoot
That's
this
the ball.
back to Sam, so Sam can introduce the next segment. This was the Game Club. Sam, I believe you got the next pick, right?
So
what-
before we kind of decided in order of which one of the Game Boys is going to pick a game first. Isaac picked before we started the first episode of the podcast. He picked Kirby's Dreamland 3. And I have to pick a game too. And I want to make it easy for the guys because we need to pick a short game. And I don't want to pick like Little Samson. We have to go buy an NES. I mean, we're trying to make it as accessible as possible for us, and then also as accessible as possible for the viewers.
Buy
If
a
you guys,
copy of Little Samson.
yeah,
Air quotes.
I don't buy anything. I mean, just kidding. Nintendo ninjas, don't come at me. But yeah, also for the viewers to make it as accessible for you guys, you folks, if you guys want to partake in this and play games as well. Part of the Game Boys is us, me. With something I value the most is hanging out with my friends, these guys, and playing games as much as possible. I know other YouTubers like YouTube becomes a thing and takes up a lot of their time, and they don't end up playing any of the games. So I want to make sure that that's what we do. So this is a great segment that Leo thought about. But anyway, now that I gotta stop yapping. Sorry. My game is also on the Nintendo online thing, whatever service, but it's a part of the expansion pass. So it's either Nintendo 64 or Sega Genesis.
Nice.
And I was looking through short games and I was stuck between two, but I'm gonna pick Sin and Punishment on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, sir.
We were talking about it, and I wanted to tell you guys whenever we were talking
That's
last
what's up.
time,
That's
it's like a
what's
2.5-2 hour
Heck
game
yeah.
or something. I played a little bit of it. I'm like, oh, I could play this for hours. It seems like a cool game.
I could see this one going up to A rank. Just
What?
I could just see that.
It's
I'm gonna keep
short.
my mouth shut. One
Okay.
of the best 64 games ever.
It was between Sin and Punishment and Star Fox 64 or Star Fox 2 on the Super Nintendo, and I was
all good
same
games,
vibes,
but-
same vibes. But I'm gonna go with Sin and Punishment because I want to play that
Awesome.
one.
If you
I've
are
never
listening
played
to this or watching this right now, play some Sin and Punishment. Do you a favor. Find it for free on the internet on a website. Play you a Sin and Punishment. You'll thank us.
Before
thank
we
us.
move on into the next segment, I do want to bring up that from the little research I did, the top 5 Kirby games that people consistently mentioned were the newest Nintendo Switch one. What was that one called, Nick?
Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
Kirby in the Forgotten Land, Kirby Planet Robobot, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, Kirby the Nintendo 64 one. What was that one called?
Crystal Shards.
Yeah.
Crystal Shards, and Kirby the other SNES
Star
one.
Ultra. No Superstar.
Yeah, Superstar.
Avalanche.
Superstar.
So those are the 5 that people
Dream Course.
consistently.
Kirby's Dream Course, right?
Those are the 5 one. Oh, Dream Course. That's a triple S tier. Risky Boys, Nick.
Oh, yeah, that's a great game. dude.
But yeah, those are the 5 that people consistently mentioned as being the best ones. Kirby 3, oftentimes, like if you're talking about quote unquote mainline Kirby, people kind of debate how many games are considered in that list. There's usually between 15 and 20. That one usually ranked anywhere between like 10 to 8 or so. So that's why I said it's kind of considered
Kind of
oftentimes
middle.
a mid-tier Kirby game.
All right, Sam, you want to shoot us into the next strategy zone?
All right, yeah. YouTube watchers, if you're watching, if you hate us, let us know in the comments. Destroy me personally. I'll take all the flack.
Smash
if you want to
that
subscribe,
dislike button.
yeah, destroy button, mash that dislike button, hit that subscribe button, and tell your parents about us that we're kind of cool. Anyway, the next segment that we brought up that we're going to talk about is kind of like a little open forum discussion topic about buying in a retro gaming convention or in a convention environment versus buying out in the wild. And in the wild could be anything: GameStop, retro video game stores, the flea market, garage sales, any of that is game for the quote wild up against convention environments. So with that, I will throw it off first to my boy Neo, Geo, Leo. What do you think?
So this is a lose-lose, win-win situation no matter which direction you go, because the thing about buying in the wild is that you never know what you're going to find, and that's part of the thrill of the hunt. But at the same time, there are times where you just go and go and go and go and go and don't find anything. It's happened to us so many times where we go months at a time to the flea market, and either there will be no games whatsoever, or there will be just the common sports titles that you do not give a darn about.
Hey, that NCAA that looks just like Super Metroid from far away.
I hate that,
know.
bro.
Every time you're like, Super Metroid? Super Metroid? Super Metroid.
For those who don't know, Leo, explain that. Leo, explain for those who don't know.
So, from a distance, if you look at NCAA basketball for the Super Nintendo, it looks almost exactly like Super
Looks a lot
Metroid.
like this from
Yes.
far away.
So
But
if
it
you're
says
looking at it,
NCAA and there's a guy dunking a ball,
yep,
and it looks
you
so
see
close.
you see the logo and you see that it's $5. Like $5 Super Metroid, I got it. Nope, it's NCAA basketball.
I got you.
Anyways, when you're going to the flea markets, you're a lot more likely to get a deal.
Looks
there
like
you go,
this.
Super
There it is.
Metroid.
Yep. Let's do a.
Yeah,
If you look
Isaac,
at-
pull it up.
All right, so here's mine. Right, like
From far
look-
away, dude. Look at the
Yeah.
name.
Ridley
Yeah.
is literally like a combination of those guys dunking in the logo. Like
Hey, you
it's
think
so
that was like
the
a
color
marketing
scheme, dude.
strategy?
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they
Yeah?
knew what they were doing, bro.
Here's some parents out
so
there.
point is, that's the ups and downs of buying in the wild, is that oftentimes you don't know where you're going to find, but oftentimes you're also likely to get a better deal, because oftentimes when people are just looking to get rid of stuff, there's been instances where when I bought my PS Vita, I bought it for $30 at a yard sale. When Isaac bought his Sega CD, he bought it in the flea market for $15. There was a point where we met up with this dude on Craigslist named John, who we always buy from. He had a Sega Nomad with 12 games for, I believe it was $120. And even then, the going rate for the Sega Nomad at the time would have been $180 by itself. Things like that,
Damn.
where at a retail store, you're not going to get that kind of deal. At the retail store, though, or at a convention setting, you're almost guaranteed to find what you want, but you're going to get it at retail plus prices. So at the very least, around where price charting is at, but sometimes upwards of 20, 25%, oftentimes even double of what it's actually quote unquote worth. So I'm kind of in this mixed bag territory where you got to know what you're doing and what you're looking for to get the best deals. Thankfully, in our area, there's a couple of stores that are actually very negotiable with prices and already priced at a good level. So I'm decently comfortable just in our local retail setting. But it's hard for me to give a consistent, concise answer as to which I prefer. And with that in mind, I'm going to pass it off to Nick.
So I'm of two minds of this. I think, as Leo mentioned, going in the wild, and what some people might consider the wild is going to be different, but going to the flea market, going to local game stores, I think those have really high highs when you find something. I remember we used to go to the flea market like at 5 a.m, and I loved that. I remember like during some times I would find like I bought like a $10 Xbox or like a $5 PS4 controller or like a $1 Wiimote. But then, you on most days you go and it's the same sun faded sports games that you see over and over again, and going to like thrift shops, it's the same thing for the most part. You see a lot
Sonic 3, for me, that is the game that I always see sun faded, and even my copy is sun faded. For some reason, it's always Sonic 3.
Yeah. And in general, like I love those moments because we're in our local area with each other, going out and finding games, and it's like the thrill of the hunt, and it's more about the experience. I will say I absolutely love conventions. I haven't been to a ton. We've been to Portland, I've been to Sacramento, and we've gone to some of those pretty consistently. But the first time I went to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, honestly, it felt like Disneyland, dude. Like I know that's a little bit hyperbole, but like I enjoy retro video games so much that like every single retro video game you want is there for the most part. And although most of the time you're gonna purchase it at like the going rate, occasionally, especially those last days, these vendors, they have just so much inventory that they're willing to negotiate. And it just, I don't know, it's just like, for lack of a better term, it's like the Super Bowl of retro video game hunting.
Nick loves negotiating.
Yeah, I love negotiating. And honestly,
sometimes I'll go on a tangent. Sometimes I want to buy a game or something, or one of the Game Boys wants to buy a game, and then Nick could be like, "Hey, let me negotiate it for you."
Yeah, I honestly like. I'll why not? Why not? The worst they're going to say is no. But anyway, like, I just love that aspect of it, and I will say I enjoy the conventions a little bit more, but just because, especially like going to a convention and there's some games that I've been putting off purchasing. I know like, okay, I've been saving or wanting to save for this particular game. I'm going to buy it at the convention with the guys. There's always eBay. eBay is, I think I used to buy some games on eBay pretty semi-frequently when I really wanted a game, but although, it's instant gratification, you buy it and it shows up a few days later, it's definitely not the same in my opinion. It's not the same as finding it in person. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I think that conventions are my personal favorite, but I do like going to flea markets and local game stores for sure. Chito, what do you think?
Yeah, just touch on that. I mean, when we first started off, we started off in the flea market and like Craigslist and OfferUp and all that stuff, and you do find great deals, especially back then when it wasn't as bad as it is now. But there's just something like different when you go to like a convention because you're with people who are like have similar interests with you as you, and not, like most of the time when I go to a convention, I end up buying stuff that I wasn't even looking for. It could be games, it could be like stickers or those I don't know, people make like cool keychains, stuff like that, and that's the stuff that I get attracted to the most because I like giving gifts to my siblings. But yeah, the convention is just there's something different about it. So I don't really mind paying a little extra just because you're gonna pay extra. So usually when you go to conventions, I try to save up because I know I'm paying more. But the experience, the time, and just being able to hang out with you guys, it's like it's worth it to me at least to spend a little more. But yeah, I feel like just going to like even when we're recording at conventions, like I feel like we're not even recording us going to conventions. I feel we're just recording us hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I think I prefer conventions over that. I haven't really gone to the shops you guys have gone, or local shops, so I can't really say. Like, I'm sure they have good deals and stuff, or the good games, but I haven't really been to them, so I can't really touch too much on that. But I do enjoy going to conventions. The flea market is dry now. I don't even bother going online anymore on eBay and stuff like that. But yeah, with that being said, who's left? Isaac?
Sure. I'll go now. To touch on what you guys said, the flea market definitely is a barren place. If you're going, especially with a specific list of things you're looking for, you're better off going to a specialty store or just going to the internet. I like going to the flea market still. I'll go, but I find more often than not, I end up just eating and then leaving. I don't end up buying a video game or buying memorabilia of video games that I like.
To those barbecue chicken kebabs.
Yeah, like I end up with a kebab or a churro, or there's like this very good like gorditas truck. That's at one of the flea markets we go to. I like these gorditas there. But the flea market, while it's a fun hunt, like the idea of like I could find something, is really, really fun. It's really only a place you should be going with the mindset of being open to finding just about anything. But if you're looking for anything in specificity, you really should go to a specialty shop or a convention. That transitions into why I like conventions more. I am reaching a point in my collecting where the things I want are becoming narrower and narrower in terms of the collections that I go for. And because of that, sometimes I even go to game shops and conventions and don't even find what I was looking for. And it's not even that I'm always looking for the rarest thing. It just happens to be like, for example, yesterday I went to Laughing Crow with our buddy Kyle. Laughing Crow, a really great retro gaming store with a seller who tends to go to these conventions that we go to too. And he had no copies of Bad Fur Day. I'm just looking to upgrade my copy because I don't like the label on mine. And he had 0, and he told me, yeah, if you had hit me up like a week or so ago, I would have had a ton of copies of Bad Fur Day for you and some with pretty clean labels. But, you could even go to these specialty shops. But the point is, you've got way more of a shot of looking for what you're looking for and finding it actually at the specialty shops and at the conventions. And for me, that's worth my time. And not only that, it's become with the conventions, that I would rather not go to the flea market all year and know that I get to like plan a trip with you guys. You know, like that's what it's become for me, is planning a trip with you guys. It's not even if you've listened to this channel or watched this channel before and you got buddies who are even remotely interested in a convention, even if it's just a local one, drag your friends to a local convention and see how much fun you have. Just do it. Just do it. It's a great time. Go eat afterward. Make plans. If you can get a hotel, get a hotel. It's an experience.
I think another thing to keep in mind too is I know that Sam's going to speak up on this very soon, so I will keep this quick, but when you go to a convention, it's not just about the convention. It's about the experience around the convention, about like saying, hey, we're in this place that we're not usually at. Oh, it's a local place that you're going to convene at. Let's explore the town. Let's eat here. Let's try out this brewery or something like that. Let's go this or that place, and let's just have a great time. Whereas when you're hunting in the wild, in terms of like your average game store or something like that, you're typically not going to go out of your way to go more than like a 45, maybe 1.5 hour radius out of your area. So it's like, it doesn't feel as much of an experience oftentimes outside of the actual buying aspect of it.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with just in general, when you go to the bigger conventions, they're usually a destination. They're usually a city. With the last one we went to was in Los Angeles. We're in California, but Los Angeles is still either a plane ride or a car ride away. Portland, the one we go to often, is either a plane ride or a very, very, very long car ride away. A lot of these are in big ticket cities. So odds are you're going to have to do a trip planning around it. And I'm not saying by any means this is the most, I know I brought up specificity in terms of collecting. This isn't necessarily a budget way to collect. You're going to save a ton more money going to the flea market and maybe even finding things that you didn't necessarily want, and then maybe even flipping or trading up for what you did want. However, if you did want what?
Oh, sorry, you going first.
Oh, I was just going to say, you're going to find the things that you could build a collection with, but it may not be what you wanted at the flea market. When you go to a convention, you're likely going to find what you wanted. It may cost more. It is going to cost more. Ticket prices, gas, all that, it's going to cost more. But I love the experience.
I was going to say that's one of the things is at a flea market, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it cheaper. And this is not necessarily a bonus for the average person. This is just something that kind of applies to us in the sense that we tend to be financially responsible enough that we could set aside money for a convention. That way it kind of, I wouldn't say offsets the cost, but we're prepared for the extra costs of things that are going to be purchased over there. And that's kind of something that we just come to accept. It's not necessarily that we're like, oh, I want to pay full price for this game. It's that we're like, okay, I have it in my budget that I can if it comes down to it.
Yeah,
so,
for
Sam,
us,
what are your thoughts?
For us, it's kind of like what you mentioned. I think it is, you know how people mention it's like instead of buying materialistic things, it's better to experience things. And I think that's kind of what you're touching on there. We're like going to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which is like my favorite time of the year because I love going there apart. I get to hang out with my friends. I get to go explore a city that's cool. I get to eat pizza that I love. My name's Sam. I love pizza. Sizzle Pie. Come on, bro.
Shout out to Sizzle
Tangier.
Pie.
It's a great place. If you guys haven't had it, check it out if you're in the Portland area. But I will say, though, I love going to flea markets. But more often than not, I find myself almost a lot of the times either finding stuff I don't care about or settling and being like, oh, this game is $6, but it's a game I'm never going to play ever in my life. And yeah, a bunch of people are like, and other YouTube channels or like other people might buy it to flip it, and like it might be a $20 game or something. But like for me, at least, I don't think it's worth my time to flip it because $14, I don't really mind. And yeah, you could argue that like, but I don't go. It's just not worth. To me, it's not worth the time to go to a flea market anymore to risk not finding anything if it's by myself. If it's with the guys, it would be fun no matter what. And it just, as we get older, it's kind of harder to find the time for me to be able to go. I see Leo change his name to Sizzle Pie Enthusiast. But that's my opinion on the flea market. But if I can, I would go every single day, and that would be my favorite way to hunt, the flea market. But it's just not feasible for me in my moment in my life right now. So I think stores are really fun. Store kind of falls into that in the wild category that we mentioned. Stores are fun, and a lot of stores around us are really great. We're lucky to have that. And I live in the Bay Area specifically, and there isn't that many stores out here, but the ones that are here are really cool. And a lot of times you kind of have to like try to haggle with them to reach price chart, similar to a convention. So, and a lot of the times they're cool. So like, I don't want to haggle. I'll just throw my money at them. And if it's a game that I really wanted to get. So there's that, weird dynamic there, but ultimately for me at least, since I do a lot of the recording, I prefer to record in the store because it's easier. So now recording is an excuse for me to hang out with you guys. So I prefer going to stores because it's just a lot easier to record. There's less environments. Definitely. There's not people trying to think that you're doing something weird with them at the flea market. I'm like, bro,
it's a different experience for sure.
It's a lot different.
There's one thing I forgot to bring up about the flea market specifically that doesn't necessarily apply to you guys, but for me, it's definitely a big factor as to why I don't really like going. It's not that I dislike going there, but that brings it down for me. It's
waking up.
Exactly. I am not a morning person. I have sleeping issues. So oftentimes I'm sleeping for like 3, 4, maybe 5 hours in a night. And flea markets are like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And obviously with flea markets, the best time to go is right when they open up. So for me, I'm like, no, skip me. Go without me. Back when we relaunched GameBois in 2018, you guys were very heavily focused on the flea market stuff, and I rarely appeared in episodes because like I don't have it in me to just wake up early in the morning and just go right away there and be on camera and like present myself in this very energetic way. I was like, I'll skip out for the most part.
I remember one of the times you showed up in an episode and it was like a whole bit where you actually woke up.
I think you handed me a drink or something
like a big segment that we were awake.
And to be honest, dude, like the way I look at it now is like, do I really want to wake up early and then be in the heat?
Nah, I show up late to the flea, bro.
The thing is, it's just
I'm pulling up at like 10:30.
But even then, it's like the sun's hitting you, and you have to walk all this. Or would you rather go to the store like Fire and Ice, you know?
Fire and Ice,
which is pretty much a convention in a small convention, AC, and
exactly.
Ryan's like super cool, and you're there. You're there for hours.
Those 2 letters right there, AC.
Sam touched on I think the nature of the beast too, is conventions or stores too will have games priced accordingly to have a haggle buffer, if you would, Sam. Like, I don't know if you want to go more into detail on like what you meant by that, but like there's just like a buffer, right? Like an invisible number that they're trying to get you to talk to.
Well, yeah, I think stores have a lot more overhead because they need to keep the lights on, they need to keep the AC running, like Leo and Chito mentioned. So, and they can afford. I mean, I don't know how much they can afford to keep games sitting for a little bit longer. But I think a lot of the times, at least some of these games that have been sitting there for a long time, they're willing to kind of negotiate with, especially sometimes like the fluctuation in prices. Like they price something at a certain time and like now it's a lot more cheaper or something, which doesn't happen as often. But recently with prices like the Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver game, those like went down in price, like $30-$40 or something like that.
My heart.
So like
Emerald went up. No, Emerald went up. Those 2 went down.
Emerald's crazy high, dude.
Yeah. I don't get it. Is there something that happened with Emerald specifically recently?
It's like it's just like Crystal, where it's just a lot higher than the other ones because it's cooler.
It's just a better version out of the Ruby and Sapphire.
I think the Battle Frontier I think that's a big draw because if I'm correct, the remakes don't have the Battle Frontier.
Don't have it.
Nope.
So I think that's a big draw.
They have a statue of the Battle Frontier. When you get to where it would be
That's
at,
awesome.
they have a statue of the Battle Frontier, and they're
Take
like
it out.
coming soon, and they're just like
That's such
like
slap in the face, bro. Slap in the
DLC.
face.
It's like day one DLC nowadays.
Something I wanted to mention. I'm not sure if we're still on the topic of in the wild versus at conventions.
Yeah, we are.
But something I think about is, I obviously love going to flea market and supporting local vendors. But one thing I really enjoy about going to game stores and conventions is I'm directly supporting the people who help keep my hobby alive.
That's true.
Because, a lot of it's hard to keep like a store open that primarily focuses on buying and selling games. In our local area, we have a good amount of local stores, and I'm hopeful that they'll stick around for a while, but I know it's not easy because to get people interested in video games and video game collecting, obviously they have different means to generate income, but I enjoy going to those stores and going to conventions because I love the hobby as in general. So, directly helping them financially, I like that part as well. So
I kind of
love conventions, man. Conventions, you go to conventions and you just feel like the freaking electricity in the air. There's just something about conventions that
definitely.
Everybody's like Nick mentioned. It's like Disneyland. Like I don't know what about it, but like
it's everybody's just happy
instantly. Like, just happy.
And that's
what I want to talk about on another pod. I know Sam brought up Day One DLC. I think that'd be a good topic one day.
Oh yeah,
Day One DLC. That's not not on the Game Boy. It's not retro, guys. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think that'd be a good topic to talk about. But with that, I think we've all kind of given our ideas on hunting in the wild versus hunting in the convention. They're both great. It just depends on what you are trying to get out of it.
Yeah, it also depends on if you're there for the experience or for the purchase. For the experience, cons, easy by far. For the purchases, then it's a lot more of a toss-up. But I'm more of an experienced person in this case, and with that in mind, I think I'd have to go with con.
I just don't want to buy random stuff at this point in my collecting.
Yeah.
I want to buy what I want, and I want to make trips with you guys. Yeah. I don't want to go to the Flea and be like, oh, I hope I find a bunch of consoles I could flip up. I want to find what I'm looking for. Like,
I want to buy games for fun. I don't want to start a business.
Yeah, I'm 30, dude. I've been collecting for like 12 years with you guys now. Like, if there's a game I wanted, I probably got it now. Now it's just the ones I don't have, So
yeah.
One topic that we can talk about in the future that's just popped in my head is what kind of got us back into collecting. Obviously, all of us have been, fans of video games for quite a long time, and I think in the future discussing a topic of what got us back into collecting would be a fun topic.
There's technically one answer to that, which we'll save for a future episode, but it's a certain show that we all gravitated towards.
That's definitely a big contributor for sure.
I'm a floating head.
Yeah, dude. All right, Sam, you want to close us out? Put a ribbon on this bad boy on episode 0 or 1, depending on how good it went.
Yeah. What do you guys in the chat, or I guess not, this is not Twitch, in the YouTube comments think about this? Do you guys prefer conventions? Do y'all prefer retro gaming stores? Do y'all prefer flea markets? Are you just starting out your collection? Do you own every other game already and you're just like in the position where Isaac is, where you only need like a couple more games that you want? So convention is better. Let us know in the comments, and if you have any other suggestions or topics we should cover, let us also know. And if you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. And if you hate us, then comment and tell me that I suck specifically. I'll take all the hate. I do not mind the hate. But also, thank you guys for watching. That's all. And
Thanks,
follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, did I just say Instagram? YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, MySpace,
TikTok,
freaking LinkedIn, TikTok. It's anything you're on, just search up at GameBois TV and follow us if we have anything.
Google Plus.
Yeah, hit
Yahoo
us up
Mail.
on Google Plus, Yahoo Mail, drop us an email. Add us on Netflix if that's
Send
a
us
thing.
a letter by the USPS.
Yeah. But thank you guys for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Woo!
All right, later. Nice hanging out with y'all.